This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. Joan and Janet are subtle energy empaths who navigate consciousness. Their passion is to support you in your evolution. As consciousness, we are all one. One mind, one heart, free of all limitations. Experience this reality with us and discover how it can make a difference in your daily living. Join us in a state of grace as we explore, with warmth and humor, this thing we call life. Now, here are Joan Newcomb and Janet Barrett.
Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. We're your co-hosts, Joan Newcomb coming to you from Tacoma, Washington, and Janet Barrett's coming to you from Portland, Oregon.
Hello, everyone. How nice to be with you again today.
We have a very interesting show for you today. We are talking with Julie Potiker, and she's a mindfulness expert, attorney, and author of the new book, Life Falls Apart, But You Don't Have to: Mindful Methods for Staying Calm in the Midst of Chaos. Julie is a trained mindful self-compassion teacher, and she shares with the world through her mindful methods for life trainings in her new book, Life Falls Apart, But You Don't Have to, and how to stay calm in the midst of chaos. I think I just said that, so I need to say it a third time, probably. So Julie holds a BSG from the University of Michigan, my mother's alma mater, and a JD from GWU, George Washington University in D.C. I used to live right by there. Lots of connections. By the way, her website is www.mindfulmethodsforlife.com.
And we're so glad she'll be with us. And let's get our announcements out of the way, and then we can have a wonderful hour with her.
Yes, we'll bring her on in just a moment.
Yeah, just a moment. So to join Joan and I through the radio show and find out all the good things and fun that we have, join us at www.consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com. You're going to find out all our podcasts are listed there from all our past shows. Both Joan and I write blogs weekly. You'll find the latest and some of the other ones there that'll be posted. And both our schedules for our meetups, me here in Portland, Oregon, and Joan up there in the Puget Sound area of Washington. She goes all over. She knows every library there is up there, I think. And also about our sessions. Both Joan and I work with clients individually. So Twitter, Facebook, YouTube links are all there, so that social media feed gets nourished there. And what else do we want them to know about that, Joan? What's up in your world up there?
All right. Well, I want to let folks know that our Spy Summer Coaching Special, the doors are open. They're open for enrollment anytime between now and August the 11th. So you can find out more by going to our website, like Janet says, consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com. I want to let folks know about my meetups coming up. I have one coming up this weekend on Saturday, June the 21st. I'm at the University Place Library at 3:15 to 5:15 in the afternoon. That's right next to Whole Foods, just south of Tacoma. I'll be on Vashon Island the Saturday after that, and then I'll be back in Tacoma on Saturday, the August 11th, and back in Seattle on August the 19th. And Janet, by the way, you have some groups and some meetups too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Every Tuesdays and Thursdays here in my home in Portland, Oregon area, you can meet a wonderful I guess we're a bunch, group of individuals that explore consciousness in all the myriad of ways that we all experience life. And also, and you can find those through Meetup and also through our website and my website. And then on Thursdays, my goodness, where is the energy this morning, Joan? Thursdays of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific, I lead groups via Zoom over live interactive internet groups. And we have a great time. It's about as close as you can get to being here and experiencing what's available in those groups. And so you can always reach me at janetb@janetandbeyond.com to get the registration packet for that. And there is no reason for you to be alone anyone out there. If you want to share mindfulness or consciousness technologies, which is what our focus more is in alignment with. It's all about being present and heart-centered awareness and how to utilize that gift in your life, in your everyday life, right? It's not about sitting on a pillow somewhere. So please contact us that way. So are those all them, Joan?
I think for the time being that is, and that was a wonderful segue about being in heart space and being mindful to bring on our guests.
Yeah.
So welcome to our show today, Julie. We're so excited to have you.
Well, I just melted. Okay, I'm just in a puddle.
Okay.
There's no reason for anyone to be alone. Oh my gosh, that's just gorgeous.
Well, thanks, dear. Oh, whoa, that's great energy, everybody. All our listeners, you need to feel. You can feel that. Whoa.
I need to be reformed into a human now.
Well, that's why we like to focus, Julie, on the show. Now, we use the words consciousness and consciousness technologies. You use the word mindfulness and those other kinds of words, and it's all about the same thing, we find, and incorporating how to be present in the moment and hear our authentic voice and the choices that come from that. And so Joan and I have been talking about the last couple of weeks, definitely about the chaos that's been present in our life and how to be with it, but not be it. And so you're just right up our alley, girl. So what do you know about chaos? What do you know about chaos out there?
What do I
We're
know
staying
about
calm
chaos?
in the midst of chaos, really.
I don't even know where to start with that, because if you're living in the United States of America, like the three of us are, it's just a hot mess.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what side of the political divide you're on. It's just the divide's so huge. It's sickening, really. So how do you not get sick by it, right? That's the practice. That is the practice.
I think it's always in acknowledging what you're perceiving something as and then bringing that into what we would call heart-centered awareness, and then just realizing, letting it break down to what it truly is and go from there.
I just I keep trying to steer from the hate towards the love. You know, and doing, I've been like upping my self-care, which I've literally walk around with a here and now stone half the time in my hands. The other half the time it's in my purse, and I'm just like looking at it. I'm rubbing it. I look like a mashugana, but I'm just, which is Yiddish for a crazy person. Yeah. I'm just, making sure I take a walk outside. I'm making sure I do guided meditations. I'm trying to remember to pay attention to what I'm doing. It's an interesting time to be alive in this body, on this planet, really.
Well, I can't.
More challenging than I remember, anyway.
Right. Well, I think Joan and I both came from a metaphysical direction into our present place. Now, you were a lawyer, and I don't know if you're still a lawyer, and you came into. Yeah, and you came into your experience of being from a different approach, and we're kind of in the same place. So how'd you get where you are today?
Okay, so that's a pretty long path. That's a pretty long, winding path, because I'm not New Age or spiritual or metaphysical, or I didn't even think but I thought I was losing my mind. When I have 3 kids. Hello, mind. I have 3 kids, and they're in their 20s now. But when they were preteens and teens, all 3 of them with ADHD, and the twins especially were just completely rotten stinkers. And they're wonderful now, so I say rotten stinkers lovingly. Yeah. I thought I had a brain tumor. I had the wrong words coming out of my mouth all the time, and it was kind of funny, but then it was really scary. Like, what's really wrong? So to a neurologist, and he did a whole battery of tests and said, your brain scans look good. What's going on in your life? And when he heard what was going on in my life, he said, have you ever heard of John Kabat-Zinn? And I said, no. Have you ever heard of mindfulness-based stress reduction? I said, no. He said, this is what you need, girl. Only he didn't say girl.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you need. It's going to help you. And I took this class, and it's completely secular, evidence-based, been studied up the wazoo for the last 40 years. And I realized, wow, okay, this is a big deal. There's something here that's powerful. And then because I'm a nerd, I just studied up, and I just started taking class after class after class after class, a lot of them online. And then I found Rick Hansen online, and then I basically stalked him until he would become my mentor.
And you
if
say that
if he ever hears that, he's going to laugh. But, you know,
right.
I just thought, this guy's got it. You know, this with Buddha's brain and hardwiring happiness and his just one thing, this guy's got the ticket for me to get healthy.
So I think what's important for all our listeners is that all roads lead to Rome. I love that statement, right? And Rome in this case is being present. And it's to enjoy and appreciate whatever road, that path you're on. It's all about enlightenment. It's not to enlightenment. It's Rome. We are in Rome, exploring life. And you have quite a background, and you've taken all that information and all those elements of your story with your twins and all their ways of experiencing life, and you're using that now. You're utilizing that now. So I can appreciate the challenge. What do you notice about that, Joan?
I noticed that we need to take a break. I was being mindful of the time. So everybody hold your thoughts, because we have to take a commercial break, but stay tuned, because we're talking with Julie Potiker about life falling apart, but you don't have to, when we come right back.
Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs. Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath, accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and I'm your host, Joan, along here with Janet, and we are talking with Julie Potiker about Life Falls Apart but you don't have to. And Janet was asking a question, and I have no idea what it was now.
Well, considering all the elements that are a part of any of our stories, Joan, and appreciating her journey, we can share in all that, right? Don't you think that however you get where you get is where you are, right? And I think that's a famous book that was written. Is that title is. So what do you notice about where we are right now?
Well, I was relating to Julie's story, and I come from a very conservative background myself. My family was longtime Republicans, and I grew up in Washington, D.C. So, so that whole left brain side of approaching life, and the idea of needing to slow down, be mindful, be in the present moment, sort of deal with the thing that's right in front of you. And I totally know how that is a lifesaver and how that can de-stress. And I was actually thinking of a question for Julie here, because also what simultaneously comes up for me is that here we are in the midst of all this chaos and this incredible dramatic roller coaster ride that's in the news constantly. And one of the things that comes up for me when I try to emotionally detach from it is I feel like I'm not being compassionate to all the suffering that's going on. So I was just wondering what your training and what you have to say with a thought like that.
Okay, so you ask a really big question. I personally don't watch the news because it's a self-care boundary that I make for myself. Because I think the news is it's traumatic, it's too dynamic, and I, when you have the audio visual, it's actually too much. So after 9/11, I stopped watching the news. I do read it though. I skim it. Like I still get the New York Times every day. And then I also see stuff coming up on my news feed on Facebook, and then, or I'll go to CNN.com and I'll just selectively skim stuff. Because I need to have self-compassion for myself. I can't, so there's a difference between empathy and compassion. And you don't want to get empathy fatigue. You don't want to just be like standing in the shoes of the people, like the parents who are having their kids ripped from them.
Yes.
Or imagine yourself as a kid being like panic stricken, so then you go to compassion, which is, okay, what can I do to help? It's the element of wanting to alleviate the suffering. And then you go to those websites like Together Rising and you give money. And then it's like, okay, I did something. Like that's how I can ground and center myself with that one specific issue. I mean, there's a million of them, but that's like that's a mindful self-compassion in a nutshell, how I would teach it and how I live it. Oh, they need social workers, they need lawyers. Let me help pay for that.
Because that's the way you can contribute, right? And with our listeners, everyone's going to have a different way of contributing. And for certainly what we look to promote on this show is that we contribute by being centered, by being in the awareness of ourselves from the bigger picture, and not so much the individual, but it's the blending of consciousness as those individuals. And
so how do you can I ask you how you do that without getting flooded? Like if it's something negative, like you don't want to be washed down the river of woe, right?
Well, I loved your empathic. What did you say? You referred to it as empathic tiredness.
Empathy. That's a Matthew Ricard. Ricard has like a really cool YouTube on that.
Okay.
He's a monk scientist dude, and he's really the bomb.
Right. It's about being present. So we're going to call that as consciousness and that heart-centered awareness and knowing ourselves as consciousness right in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to the fatigue and what happens is that it starts to break up. It creates a different relationship. We're looking to relate differently to the information out there in the world. And in doing that, it gives you that place to breathe. It gets you out of your reactive state, and it gets you into, oh, I can respond state, which is what you were describing, how you responded.
Exactly.
And so we're looking at it from a place of in being present and appreciating all the dynamics and not getting into victim, abuser, win-lose, because all those dualities are really present in those realities. And you take that step back and you can go, okay, so let me go inward. And I think this is probably any monk's orientation. Let me go and be that stillness, but the stillness is not active. Not active. That stillness is breathtaking. It is rippling out. And what we do is we hold as these points in consciousness. We hold that position and things can change out there in the world. And we do this in groups every week about what it is that catches our attention and what if we just were okay. We're not trying to fix, solve, save. What we're doing is we're looking at our attachment to it and how to orient that differently so that it frees it up. And then we get to see what happens out amongst our ripples, what ripples back. And that's the way we address the world. So.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I think I just want to live with you guys.
Well, we both have room. You'd have to put up with my crazy mother, but just gotta be.
Just be floating along. At least your mother's alive. You know,
yeah.
I had the weirdest thing happen yesterday. You guys could, and this is completely off topic, but it's in your it's in your wheelhouse, and it's not in mine.
Okay.
So it was my sister's in town, and so her grandkids and her daughter-in-law came in town, and we had her daughter-in-law's second birthday yesterday, which was just the most deliciously adorable thing ever. And both of my identical twins showed up, which was surprising because I can never really know if they're going to be available, they're not going to be available, whatever. And the one that's still struggling with some issues of addiction and recovery and this and that and the other thing, she was there, and it was like her most healthy self. And when they went to leave, they were both hugging me, and our three faces were together. And I had this incredible visit from my mom, who's been dead for 2 years. And my mother's never visited me other than with, like, I see feathers sometimes. And I think like, oh, Mom, hi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this was like a whoosh. And I said to the girls, oh, my God, my mom came, and my heart was palpitating, and she visits them all the time. These girls are just completely spiritual. I don't know where they came from. You know, I mean, they came out of my vagina, so they came from me. But I had a spiritual visit from the other side, and I don't know how to explain it. And it makes me sound a little bit kooky to myself, but I feel so grateful. I feel so grateful about it.
Take it away, Joan.
Yes, exactly. You're in the right place for that. This is exactly what we talk about all the time. And I share a lot. My mother passed in January of 2013. She was 88. And I had spent the last 2 years helping her pass, basically, because she had Alzheimer's and cancer. And I get visitations from her all the time. She'll waft through my space. But the other thing I've noticed is that she and my father, who I usually don't talk to, he passed 11 months later, but I usually don't talk to him, but both of them have been very, very present recently. So some of that I can say has to do with rising sensitivity, that we're all increasing in sensitivity. There are also certain times of the year where the veils are thinner, and we happen to be going through a period of time that is a very thin veil. And of course, your mom would also show up when all the family is there as well. So that was a perfect portal for her. But it's interesting. It's just interesting to me how she shows up for you symbolically and shows up for your daughters in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I just always say to them, like they'll say, Grandma came to me in a dream, and I'll say, you're so lucky. How'd she look?
Well, okay, so I would have a couple of inputs to that. And this speaks to all of us. So wherever our listeners are, it's how you've encoded your state of what you call reality. Right. And you know all about emotional plasticity and brain plasticity. And reality is malleable. And where that doesn't surprise me at all, because she's a real energy for your daughters. She's a real energy for you in your relation to her, which is different than their relation to her. So, and how you view the unseen. I have a feeling your daughters relate differently to the unseen than you do. And
they're so much more comfortable than I am with all the metaphysical stuff in the world. Yeah. And I don't know if that's just because I was a lawyer or I'm just skeptical or whatever, but it's like these walls are being sort of broken down now that I'm
right
7 and have been walked through fire and everything.
Well, I have to say the other thing is that people perceive things differently, and so then we'll have the expectation that we're supposed to perceive it empathically, where we're more of a visual person, and so seeing a feather has a different message to you than you having like a physical sensation. So for instance, Janet drops into heart space to have this expanded experience of consciousness, and I do more of a shift. A shift that would, if you want to give it a direction, is up, but my training was clairvoyant. So I have an expanded perspective that is kind of a visual feeling sense. So for you, I also think of you, Julie, as a bridge from other people who have, very right brain or very conservative or very in the real world, the way that you can explain it, but you are starting to have, and you, in your mindfulness practice, have been having that expanded awareness. And so you're better able to speak to those people.
Yeah, I guess I am. I mean, I've always been able to teach skeptics because I teach it to them. I teach them the science behind why they ought to meditate. Like, look, like you're stupid to not do this because your heart rate and your blood pressure are going to go down. And if you have anxiety and depression, that's going to go down. Your well-being is going to go up. Like, what's the downside of this? There's no downside. Give it a try for your brain health. So I have all that. And on the other hand, I have this like, oh my God, what's happening to me?
Right.
I have this maybe I am going to be one of those people,
Going to turn into Byron Katie or something?
I don't know. I mean, it's weird. It's a little bit weird, but yet I'm trying to remain open-minded and.
Okay, so here's some suggestions. And listeners, what Julie's talking about is so common to all of us. You want to be the skeptic about life. You want to be able, but there's, in the context that you're in, your skepticism, it's in a state of openness. It's in a state of opportunity. It's like in a state of, yes, it's a healthy skeptic, not to negate something. Now, we all got to judge, and we can hear as we describe it ourselves in our stories about how something makes us uncomfortable. That's a judgment that we're holding on some level. So we go past that, give that up, and we look at, I got to be honest with you, Julie, both Joan and I have experienced and see things that have no logic to them. What they have is fuzzy logic. There's all kinds of different logics. And fuzzy logic is where everything is moving. Everything is bits and pieces, and you are photons of light and a little biomass, and it's all in patterns. And when you appreciate that, and that's all from science that confirms that and observes that, and when you really get that the act of the observer is what determines what shows up, what your biases are, what your perceptions are set for in your stories, we can better appreciate that, what the hell just happened? That,
right.
In ourselves, we blinked and something happened, and then we blinked again and it changed again, and then it went back to what it was. And in a state of where you don't discredit yourself, in a state of where you're not in you're in a different relationship with your control mechanisms of what reality is and isn't. When you're out of your biases, you're free to notice things in different ways. And that's what we so appreciate. And that's what you're kind of coming in the back door, it feels like a bit about. Right.
So part of my practice is going to have to be, or should be, not being afraid of that.
Right.
Just like relaxing and having an open curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you feel a bad emotion and you do the acronym RAIN, like recognize that you're oh, that's anger coming up in my body, or, oh, that's anxiety. And then you like allow it to be there, and then you investigate why it's there. And then and I do nourish, like tell yourself what you really need to hear. Like, oh, that's okay. Oh, that was really hard. Oh, but you've got this, or whatever. Like, so when these things happen, I need to do that, so that I don't shut it down.
Yes.
Oh my God, you're going to be a kook. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be a kook. I want to be
Why not?
I don't know. What does being a kook really mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so I need to have I want to keep a playful, open curiosity about my journey, moving forward into this more like less scientific, I should say, or less evidence-based, or less like, just because I can't prove it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Oh no.
So you spoke to a couple things there, Julie, and the first part is just your own part of your brain that tells you you're going to be a kook. It's like your inner critic that tells you that you're going to be a kook. And
bingo.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. So many people can resonate with this, because we all have that kind. I call them gremlins, inner gremlins, but they're inner negating voices for when we are going through this expansion of consciousness. And so, of course, it's going to come up with negating things to try to get us back on the old path of doing things, as opposed to this brave new world that we're in. And then the other thing that you're expressing is that fear and concern that so many of us are experiencing right now. And the way I describe it is that we are going through this shift in consciousness where our greater higher selves are coming more into our bodies. We are having a higher awareness coming into form. And so what is happening is everything that is not in vibration with that higher form is disintegrating. And you can see that reflected in the world as everyone's becoming more empowered. So all the old paradigms of power are disintegrating, and the people who cling to those old paradigms of power are completely losing their shiz. So, we're watching panic attacks happen in places like Washington. So because that's in the process of going away. But it's great how you express it for people's individual experiences.
And so you guys there's so many different things.
Thank you. Yeah. There's like 20 issues that just come up.
Right, exactly.
Says the lawyer brain.
Yeah. So I would start from a place that what you're talking about is that life is user friendly. Information, and information means all this kind of stuff, and you take labels off of everything, and you take those judgments out of it, because the label is a judgment, and you've set it there because it keeps you safe. And okay, fine, we're there, let's go beyond that. And you get out of your own way and you allow things to be user friendly. So how is this useful? And whatever the information is, whatever the story is, and where our empathy gets pulled, where our compassion shows up, it's also about, how does this help me in my life? How do I explore who I want to be? And everything that shows up from that viewpoint is opportunities. Now, I can self-judge those and decide that that's right, that's wrong, that doesn't feel good, give it up, I don't want to do that. I can go all those places, and then I can just shut that down and go, what is present energetically? What am I noticing? Get out of my own reference for how that would be, and go back to a sense of as consciousness, where the individuals were all sharing this collective known as consciousness. Where
so you're dropping, are you dropping your ego to do that?
I guess you can do it in that reference. For me, ego is just an indicator of flow. Everybody's got an ego. So, but I want a flowing sense of ego. I don't want egotism. You're talking about egotism.
Well, and no. How I'd explain your ego as your personality, but your personality is made up of a lot of different pictures. Right. And those more solidified concepts or pictures are the part that's disintegrating. So if you've really identified with that, that's what's going away, and that can really freak you out. So, yeah.
The other part that stands out is, as Julie's describing so well, whole brain thinking. It's the difference between left brain, which is about structures, and right brain, which is about the collective, the big visuals, the whole picture, and how that in the body, how that in the mind gets filtered through to the left brain, which its job is to make whatever the right brain came up with real. And so it gets set. And so any kind of learning or training or discipline is usually about systems information, and it's something you have knowledge of. We're looking at it from a whole brain perspective of how those are integrated, not competing, and how they work together. So it's God and self, or source and self, or universe and self, consciousness and self. And it's this relation. There's this open flow relationship. Don't judge. Don't need to judge. Judge. Oh, I need to judge. No, you don't need to judge. Yeah, you do. The body needs to be safe. That kind of thing. We're constantly engaging that, and we want to appreciate ourselves in that in that position. That what if it's just about life and how you are choosing to form it to be you, and that's malleable. You can change what you think is truthful. It is in that moment when you were 5, and now at 35 and 65 you go, oh, that was true then, but now I know a lot more, so that's not really what I'm going to call truth anymore. That's just information. And you go, where's my truth about this now? And you go, oh, it's a little over there. Okay, so you are that there, you're not that was. And skill sets.
I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, let's all try to get a word in edgewise, but let's see if there's a sentence that ends there.
Oh my God. I don't know. It's the yin. I think you're talking about the yin and the yang of, like, being with ourselves, and I don't know. And that's about balance. It's all about balance for me, really.
Yes. And maybe you're reflecting what our listeners hold. It's okay to not know. Now, what is it like when I say that? It's okay to not know, because then you haven't set up any relationship to being present. You're not already in the future about something. You're not in a set of expectations. So what is it like to be open, not knowing?
So how do you, Julie, how are you with the not knowing this or meaning
as a lawyer
and all this?
Well, ladies, no, that whole being present thing, I pop in and out of it during the day. Like for me, I need reminders to to be where I am, to notice what I'm doing when I'm doing it, to not be worrying and ruminating. That's part of my practice. I need reminders. So I'll put like little stickers around, and then I can pay attention to what I'm doing when I'm doing it. It's way more kind of concrete than I think what you guys are talking about. I only really feel like I'm this flowing particle of the universe person, which is more not a person, but more of a being connected to other beings. When I'm when I'm at a mindfulness retreat, and it's a silent retreat, and eventually on day 3 or day 4, I'm like this floating, flowing thing, and everybody looks like they have a candle inside them. But in everyday life, that's not true for me. In everyday life, I'm just this embodied being doing the best that I can, trying to remember to pause and make a skillful reaction and make a skillful choice. I'm not that groovy. I'm just you're trying the best I can to raise the people in my circle to love themselves and love each other, to hope that the bar will get raised as it ripples out.
Does
that make sense?
It totally does.
Sure.
And you so perfectly expressed it, what I think so many people are going through. And when I talk about the consciousness shift, it's that we are growing towards a state where we will be walking around. And some of us, like Janet, already are walking around like they've been 3 days in a retreat already.
Exactly.
So, you're such a wonderful bridge for people who come from no background and yet are starting to have these experiences. So it's really quite lovely having you here and reflecting that.
Right.
Do you remember when Harry met Sally? I'll have whatever she's having.
Exactly.
Right. Definitely. Well, I think what comes to mind is it's a shift from doing to being is what you're describing, Julie, and you're a being, and it's but doing, accomplishment, having things, and I'm not saying this about you had to go through a lot to become a lawyer. You had to study, you had years of discipline, you had this, and you can see where all those layered up, right? And then here you are, and it's what you do so often for all of us is what defines us. And what we're doing is holding the position that we are beings who move through our own inspiration to do, to present, to invite, to invoke. And that it's a kind of a reverse positioning. And we're all at different places with that because we don't always value or honor being.
But you're still doing.
Yes, you're still doing,
because you're teaching people how to be. So you're doing
right.
And that
comes out of the inspired place, right? It's the passion, it's the bliss. It's and what I had to go through in my life story to get to that position, right? So we all are at different places, and that's what's so fascinating and enjoyable and taunting and frustrating and glorious and wonderful about being alive, is that we do come from all these different perspectives and awareness, and it's about awareness that's already present. See, I'm more interdirected that way. I say who you are is within you already, and you're unfolding your awareness of that. And so you're describing so lovely, you have the awareness in you, and it opens and closes and opens and closes and opens and closes. And it's like, all right, take the competition out of with ourselves, because we do that all the time, and go, okay, today I did it twice, and maybe tomorrow I'll do it 10 times. But right now, I'm really happy being wherever I am. And it's about owning that too, right? It's just taking.
That's why I think that's why they call it a practice.
Yeah.
I think this whole life that we're living, if we choose to stay on the planet and not kill ourselves when the pain gets too bad, in all seriousness, I think it's just a practice. And it's, yesterday morning, oh my gosh. So I talk about the bashing myself with my own inner critic. Yesterday morning, I was on the news just for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is so fast. It's pathetic. And what they wanted to talk about was when I had suicidal ideation, and which was, decades ago. And how I came out of it, I guess. Right. And I was just completely vulnerable out there. Now people know, and I didn't realize I was going to be so public. And my husband was like, that's really intrusive. That's really kind of invasive. And I'm kind of out there with my pots and pans flying. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Janet.
Yeah, go ahead. We need a break.
We do need to take a break, but I wanted to listen to her story.
You need to make me feel better, both of you.
Yes, we were having a moment. So we're so glad you're here, and you came through those experiences to share with others. And so we do need to take a quick break, and we will be right back, because we have lots more to finish saying with Julie Potiker about life falls apart, but you don't have to.
Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs. Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath, accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan, along here with Janet, and we have been talking with Julie Potiker, Life Falls Apart, But You Don't Have to. And Julie, you mentioned at the beginning of the show that you were in the Northwest a lot. Do you have any live events or anything to come up that our listeners would like to tune into?
Well, Friday morning, I'm going to be on TV in Portland, and I hope I do better than I did yesterday morning in San Diego. I definitely will have my better hair and makeup. I mean, I don't know. I'm on some, it's a lifestyle show, and it's on KATV. Is that right?
KATU.
KATU.
Yeah, it's a good morning show. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
okay. So those who get
and then other than that, I'm just on my sailboat up in the San Juans and in the Gulf Islands.
Okay, so there you go. All right, it's just you know what that feels like, right, Julie? To be on that sailboat. Okay, put yourself there right now.
It's my bliss, man.
Yes, put yourself there right now. Now, see, you that is so strong in you. That's the rest of this. You know, you mentioned the word vulnerable, and maybe this is a good place to mention. Vulnerable comes into play usually in terms of strong or weak, and we don't like to be vulnerable if we consider ourselves strong. We can see it as a weakness, and if we let go of that and relabel it, re-encode it to openness, you have nothing to hide. What the hell is there to hide? Right now,
I'd like to see it as courage, but
there you go.
But I don't. I mean, I intellectually want to see it as courage, but emotionally, I'm not there yet. It's a practice.
Okay,
it is progress, not perfection.
Yeah. So you just take how you want to relabel courage and just allow it to be closer to being real, because it's about changing that malleable reality. Right. And in this state, you're having a tendency to hold it off. Right. And we're just going to collapse time out of that because there is no time or space in consciousness. There you go. You just integrate it in. And what it's like to value yourself as a courageous person, which may not be in your framework too much. You may have a different relationship to courageous that way. So right in this moment and being open and sharing who you are, how could that be a negative? Now, we can think of it in terms of business and go, oh, someone can have power over me because now they know my secrets and all that. Well, what if there are no secrets? Because they don't matter. In this reality, they don't matter. And if I allow this reality to keep getting bigger, they don't matter. And they still don't matter. And there may be in another moment when they do, but then I'm just going to go back to this moment.
But you know what does matter, Janet?
Time, huh?
Yeah, you said there wasn't, as consciousness, there's no time or space, but in radio time. I would, so Julie, I want to let folks know who you are and your website and anything else you'd like people to know. So we've been talking with Julie Potiker. She is the mindfulness expert and attorney, and she's the author of the new book, Life Falls Apart, But You Don't Have to, Mindful Methods for Staying Calm in the Midst of Chaos. And her website is mindfulmethodsforlife.com. And so you also mentioned that you're going to be on the radio in Portland tomorrow in the morning show.
TV. No, it's
TV. Sorry,
Friday
TV.
Morning.
Yes,
it's Friday morning.
And people can get your book off your website or Amazon or in other places?
Yeah, there's some really bizarre, places, but Amazon's the easiest. And it's only $3.49 on Kindle. And also I'm giving all the proceeds to charity. So I really don't want to profit from trying to help people feel better. And I'm lucky that, quite honestly, that I don't need to. So that's how I can do that. Yeah. And the other thing is my Facebook is the business Facebook, not the personal Facebook. It's such a nice place to be because every day there's just a beautiful image and a lovely quote. And they're, from people that are my teachers, like Brene Brown or anybody, really, Rick Hansen or just Insight Timer even. I mean, it's just, if you need a boost in life, that Mindful Methods for Life Facebook is just lovely.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciated your time, and we love what you're doing in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. You're super groovy. Super groovy. I've got my grooviness for the whole week now.
There we go. Right. There you go. Yes, it does have a ripple effect out into the rest of your life. So just notice what's changed after hanging out with Janet and me. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to hang, and we'll do us, and after we break from the show, we can talk some more. So go for it.
Love that.
Okay, so really quick in our 2 minutes left, I'm going to let people know how to contact us after the show. We have a website, consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com, and there you can listen to all our podcasts. You can read Janet and my blogs. You can learn about our meetups. Janet has hers in her lovely home in Portland on Tuesday and Thursdays, and I hold mine around the Puget Sound. I'm coming up in University Place on this Saturday, Vashon Island the weekend after that, Tacoma, and then Seattle. And you can find all of that on Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. If you like our social media, you can connect to Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube links on that site as well. And just a quick plug for my summer coaching special. The doors are open for that. I am doing an intensive one-on-one summer coaching for folks. So go find out about that at consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com. And Janet, do you want to real quick let them know about your groups?
Oh, okay. So Thursdays, 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific. Live interactive groups using Zoom video conferencing. It's just like being here. So thank you. We want to thank Julie. We want to thank all of you, as always. Thank you.
Yes, and tune in next week. Same time, same channels. You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. And thanks so much for helping to co-create the show, no matter if you're listening live or on demand. You energetically contribute to our collective experience. Joan and Janet love to hear from you and invite you to email your comments and ideas for them to explore each week. Contact them at consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Tune in next week for another great show, and until then, keep enjoying this wonderful adventure we call life.